Hey, you're listening to the Riverdale Podcast. This is episode number 83. My name is Jonathan. Welcome to lovely Riverdale, USA. This is a weekly Archie Comics fan podcast. We update every Saturday morning, and every week we break things down into 4 categories. The first category is the book of the week. That's the comic book I read this week. Sometimes it's a new comic book, sometimes it's an old comic book, but it's always an Archie comic book. We move then to the news of the week. That's what happened in the world of Archie in the week since our last podcast. We then jump to new releases. That's what came out this past Wednesday. Will be coming up this coming Wednesday from Archie. We're going to wrap things up today, going back in time to the floor of the Granite State Comic Con in New Hampshire, where I talked to none other than Dan Parent. That's a fun conversation. I think you're going to like it. It's a big, exciting show. I'm excited to have you here. Thanks so much for listening. Let's get on to the book of the week. This week's book of the week is Archie number 648. This is the Thor parody, Archie the Clod of Thunder. Now, we heard about this months ago. We talked about it when the Walter Simonson variant cover was announced. So I've had some time to look forward to this issue, and it didn't disappoint in the least. I was lucky enough to get one of the Walter Simonson variant covers. Looks great. We've got Jughead in the role of Volstagg, eating a couple of big chicken legs there. And I guess we've got Thor himself or Mr. Andrews as Odin up above this whole scene. It's really intricate, really nice, and then Walter does an amazing job rendering the Archie characters, certainly not in his regular style. Really, really cool. If you don't know about Walter Simonson, look him up. He's a comic legend who is thankfully still with us. We're losing so many of the greats of comics as time passes, but his work on Thor is legendary, renowned, super important. A lot of the stuff he did for Thor in the 80s is what's ending up in the films now. And speaking of the films, this was how completely out of touch I was. I was reading this comic book and I thought, how odd it is that they're doing a Thor parody. And then it totally clicked in that there's a giant multi-million-dollar Thor film coming out next month. So, ridiculous line of thought on my part. But what we have here is a pretty standard story, a fun story. Let's run down the credits. Written by Tom DeFalco, pencils by Fernando Ruiz, inks by Rich Kozlowski, letters by John Workman, and colors by Digicore Studios. And I love that Tom DeFalco is writing for Archie. He's been writing for them for, I guess, a good 6 or 7 years now. He's collaborated with Fernando Ruiz a number of times on the Man from Riverdale storyline a few years back. I guess that's probably 6 or so years ago now. They also did a great Robin Hood story, and both of those tied in a lot of stuff from the past of Archie. Big, big fan of those books. And here, what we get is, granted, a lot of what we've been getting from Archie over the last year, which is these characters from Riverdale recast in different roles. And though we've gotten a lot of that over the years, over the past year or so, especially in the Betty Veronica book, this is still fun. I want to see more Archie and Riverdale. I want to see more of those adventures. But if this is what we're going to get, then we could do a lot worse than Tom DeFalco and Fernando Ruiz working on it. Tom has a great sense of humor. I love his subtle jokes and things like that. And the way that he has set things up with Archie in the role of Thor and Reggie in the role of Loki, I don't know why I didn't see that coming, but Reggie as Loki is genius. Going through, getting a little spoilery here, we have Moose in the role of the Frost Giant, which is ridiculous. But most of all, what we get is terrific Fernando Ruiz art. None of the regular Archie artists draws action and adventure as well as Fernando Ruiz. And we get some great fighting scenes. We get, swords and hammers and maces and clubs and stuff. And there's one panel in particular where there's just a lot of space on the page. It's page 13 when Archie is sent to Earth from Asgard, or All Good, as it's called in this particular storyline. And Reggie, in the role of Loki, has followed him to Riverdale. And there's a panel, 3 panels at the top, and then a large panel at the bottom. And there's just a lot of space, a lot of room to breathe. And I don't know what particularly drew my attention to this, but as I was going through, I stopped on this panel because there's a lot of negative space there. There's a lot of room to breathe. And I think when I'm reading a lot of Archie comics, a lot of them are really packed, dense panels. You very rarely get a big splash page or a big action scene. And especially when you're reading digests, they're not only a large number of panels to a page, it's a small page. But there was just something really nice when I turned that page, and it's a simple panel. It's Archie in the foreground and Reggie in the background, and they're just throwing a couple lines at each other. They're standing outside of Riverdale High. But they're standing on this walkway, and there's a lot of just open air and space. And there was something compelling about that. I hope that comes through at all. But, like I said, fun story by Tom DeFalco, legendary Marvel Comics editor. I should probably go look and see if Tom DeFalco was an editor when Walt Simonson was at Marvel. I have to believe that there was some overlap there. We also get some great slapstick. In addition to the sort of super heroic action that we get in here, we also get a great panel, ridiculously enough, of Archie getting kicked by a donkey or a mule and sort of bouncing off the floor. And that's something that I miss about Archie comics from the old days. I guess back in the 50s and 60s, we get a lot more sort of squash and stretch from the Archie characters, a little more classic cartoony in the way that they interacted with the world. Certainly, it's not very realistic that Archie would be tumbling across the floor and get back up. But we have great sound effects: pwok, sprat, pwoom, bam, crash as he goes across the floor. And the issue wraps up neatly and very well. I love a good single-issue story. This is certainly a great example of that. And Tom DeFalco has been in the business for years, knows how to write a great issue. And it leaves the door open for a future issue if that's what we want. I'm sure that there are 100 inside Thor jokes through here that I didn't catch that Tom DeFalco peppered in there. I'm sure there are some brilliant artistic choices on Fernando Ruiz's part that I'm not catching. But I had a great, great time reading this week's Book of the Week, Archie number 648. In Archie news this week, in the New York Post this week, it was reported that there's a further lawsuit in the Archie offices this is an ongoing back and forth between, it seems, the entirety of the company and co-CEO Nancy Silberkleit. Now, granted, one of the reasons I have been hesitant to talk about these things in the past, I, of course, do not have the full story. I'm not there. I don't know. I'm certainly not in a position to take sides. But the thing that most compels me to not discuss these things on the show is the heavy-handed way that Nancy Silberkleit is portrayed in all of these articles. Of course, the New York Post is known for sort of inflammatory reporting, and this article was no exception. But the facts, as I understand them, trying to avoid the spin of this particular article, is that 6 employees of the Archie offices, including Victor Gorelick, have filed a suit against Nancy Silberkleit for inappropriate behavior in the office, bullying, those sorts of things. This is certainly notable. We'll follow up if there's any further information, but you can head over to RiverdalePodcast.com. It will link to this article from the post of this episode, and read it yourself. See if you can cut through the spin and the sort of ridiculousness of the writing, and make a decision for yourself about what's going on. But notable, that's going on in the Archie offices. On the good news side of things, nothing but good news here on out. IGN.com has announced this week that Mega Man X will be making a debut in the Mega Man comics, starting with Mega Man number 34 coming up in February. I don't know a lot about Mega Man X, other than it's a variation of the character derived from video games. I'm not sure if past comic book incarnations have included this or not, but it looks good. I'm excited about it. This will obviously be my introduction to Mega Man X, and this is going to be a series of backup stories that are going to run within the Mega Man comic. So that's going to be rad. That's going to be written by Ian Flynn and drawn by Patrick Spaziante. So we're looking forward to that. Also, Archie has announced all of their plans for the upcoming New York Comic Con coming up just next weekend. Right on top of us. I had made plans to go this year, and again, my plans have been foiled, which is a real drag. But if you are going to be there, it looks like there's lots of exciting stuff going on for Archie. We've got the superhero sort of action-based panel going on Thursday, and we've got the Riverdale-based, the Archie-based panel on Saturday. They've also got a whole slew of signings, prizes, giveaways, stuff like that. Looks like it's going to be another exciting New York Comic Con for Archie Comics. They really pull out the stops for this convention. Finally, over on CNN.com, this was posted last weekend. This was a really sweet, nice article about Victor Gorelick, editor-in-chief at Archie Comics, talking about his life and his 55 years of service at Archie Comics. This was written by Bob Green over on CNN.com, entitled Why We Still Love Archie. Recommended read. That was a lot of fun. So, in recap, we've got a lawsuit over in the Archie offices. We've got Mega Man X coming to Archie Comics. We've got Archie's plans for the New York Comic Con. And we've got that great article about Victor Gorelick over at CNN.com. Head over to RiverdalePodcast.com. You'll see a post for this show. And you can, we've got links there to all of these articles. You'll definitely want to be reading them. New releases for this past Wednesday, October the 2nd are, of course, our book of the week, Archie number 648 for $2.99. Also, we got Archie Comics Super Special number 4 for $9.99. I love Archie Comics Super Special. It is, I don't know what it is. It's just a physically larger Archie Digest. but something about the size of it, the paper stock that they use, the nice glossy covers, the quarterly nature of it that makes it sort of seasonal. And inside, there's lots of great articles about what's coming up, and a lot of it's just sort of like press and promotion for other Archie stuff. But there's something great about it. Get yourself a copy of Archie Comics Super Special. Don't let the $9.99 price point scare you away. There's a lot of good stuff in there. They're running a lot of early Cheryl Blossom stuff in there. There's cool stuff, for sure. But I'm getting sidetracked. Archie Double Digest number 244 came out this past Wednesday for $3.99. Also, Betty and Veronica Double Digest number 216 for $3.99. And we got Sonic the Hedgehog number 253 for $2.99. Also, Archie's Even Funnier Kids Joke Book for $6.99. That's an interesting compilation of jokes and one-page gags and things like that. It's a lot of repurposed art. It's an interesting book to look at for sure. And finally, this week we got Sonic Saga Volume 4 House of Cards for $11.99. Looking ahead to next week, this coming Wednesday, the edge of your seat might get uncomfortable waiting for Afterlife with Archie number 1. This will be out this coming Wednesday for $2.99. If you haven't heard about Afterlife with Archie, you haven't been listening to the show, you haven't been going to comic news sites, this is a great horror series. We're definitely going to be talking about it next week at length. I hope it's as good as I'm hoping it will be. I guess we'll wait and see. But we'll get that next week for $2.99. 4 different covers on that. Actually, a number of different covers. But we've got the Francesco Francavilla cover, the Francesco Francavilla variant cover, the Tim Seeley variant cover, and the Andrew Peaboy variant cover. And then there are various dealer incentive covers. There's an image of Zombie Jughead walking towards what is, I think, Pops in the original drawing. And a lot of retailers have commissioned covers that have their comic shop logos in those windows. So I'm not sure in total how many variant covers there are, but a lot of variant covers, a lot of great hype. So excited for Afterlife with Archie number 1. Also, next week we're going to get Kevin Keller number 11 for $2.99. That's got a cool Bill Galvin variant cover on that. I posted that on the blog a while ago, maybe a month or two ago. Looks great. Excited about that. And some of the Diamond Solicits folks are announcing the Art of Archie, the covers, to be coming out this coming Wednesday, the 9th. That is a $29.99 hardcover. That's a book focusing on all of the great Archie covers from back in 1941 up until today. Now, we talked about this just last week. It was my concern that maybe it was going to be delayed or we weren't going to see it. I went on at length last week, and through social media and all of that stuff, Archie folks posted images of the books in hand. Awesome. Excited about that. So be on the lookout. We're not expecting it until the end of the month, but like I said, some of the Diamond orders are showing that it'll be coming in this Wednesday, so keep an eye out for that. Also, on the digital side of things, this week we got Archie Through Time. It's a digital exclusive you can get through the Archie app or over at digital.archiecomics.com. This is a 200-page compilation of stories with the Archie characters through different periods of time. There's some Archie 3000 stories in there. I'm not sure. I haven't had a chance to look at all of it. I'm sure there's some Archie 1 stuff. But a cool compilation nonetheless. 200 pages, $4.99. So those are your new releases for this past Wednesday, the 2nd, this coming Wednesday, the 9th, and your digital releases for the week from Archie Comics. Finally today, I wanted to talk about my trip last weekend to Granite State Comic-Con. This was in Manchester, New Hampshire. This is a convention that's been going on for a number of years. This might have been their 10th anniversary. And they just expanded this year to 2 days. Seems like a great convention. This is my first time there, and I had a great time. It was a great artist alley at that show. A lot of cosplay, some good dealers, and for a regional show, I thought it was tremendous. The ridiculous amount of cosplay, a crazy, crazy amount of cosplay. I definitely recommend it if you're in the area. It's certainly a reasonably priced convention to get into for the number of artists and creators that you have access to. I, of course, talked to Dan Parent. One of the major reasons I went down there, I was really looking forward to meeting him and talking to him one-on-one. But before we get to that, I wanted to mention I went through all of the bins, all the 50-cent bins, all the dollar bins, found some great stuff. I got a stack here of Jughead #1. This is the relaunch from 1987. Got the first, 5th, and 7th issues of that series. I'm excited. This was the new like Lady Killer Jughead. I haven't read these issues yet, but I'm really excited to get to those. I also found a copy of Veronica #1, Veronica in Paris. This was the series that was conceived of by Dan Parent and drawn by him. And this was the numbering for the series was kept for the Veronica series. It started out with her traveling to different countries and stuff, and then eventually became the regular Veronica book, which was running until Kevin Keller took it over just a couple years ago. I was excited to find that. Got Dan Parent was kind enough to sign that for me. I found an old Archie Giant series issue starring the Madhouse Glads. Wanted to get read up on those before the World Tour series comes out. Then we get into the particular oddities. I'm always looking for the weirdest Archie comics I can find, and I'm sure that we'll be talking about some of these on the show coming up. I found the official adaptation of the Archie Riverdale and Back Again TV movie. This is a live-action TV movie that was made in the late 80s, starring the adult versions of the Archie kids coming back together for a class reunion. I've got it. I haven't seen it in years, but I now have the adaptation drawn by, of all people, Gene Colan. Legendary comic artist Gene Colan. It looks great. I know that Gene was doing some work on the Ninja Turtles books for Archie around this time. I had no idea that he had drawn the main characters. I'm excited about that. And in terms of sheer weirdness and fun, I also got The Adventures of Bayou Billy #1. I believe that's a video game character. I got the Wild West Cowboys of Moo Mesa #1. Again, an Archie comic, a licensed book from the early 90s. And a couple issues from Archie's Hanna-Barbera line from the mid-90s. I got Hanna-Barbera All-Stars #1 and the Jetsons #2 with a really lovely painted cover. The oddest one of the bunch is an Archie Adventure Series issue from the early 80s. This is Mantech Robot Warriors. So look forward to those. Like I said, I love the odd Archie comics. The weirder, the better. The strange license books, I love that stuff. And really excited to get to those early issues of Jughead as well. But enough about me. As I said, I was excited to meet Dan Parent. Checked out some of his original art. So exciting. I can't tell you how much fun it is to see original art with hand lettering on it in this day. That does not happen. All of Archie's books are hand lettered still, which is fantastic, which means when you buy the original art, the word balloons and all of the text is right in there, which doesn't happen with other modern books that are lettered digitally. But Dan was nice enough to take a few minutes and talk to me. It was a lot of fun. So let's head back in time now and talk to Dan Parent. All right, we're at Granite State Comic Con with Dan Parent. How's your convention going?
Great. A lot of fun.
Cool. Well, this has been another huge year for you. It seems like every year things ramp up a little bit more for your responsibilities at Archie and your output at Archie. This year we got, of course, Archie and Glee. You've written all of the recent issues of Betty and Veronica, all the storybook issues. We had Kevin Keller's First Kiss.
You've been jet setting around for the MAC Cosmetics line.
Yeah.
Is that fair to say?
Yeah. When you put it that way, after I think about it and look back, it has been a pretty crazy year. So, but yeah, it's been great.
Are there any highlights? Any big stuff?
I would have to say the Mac stuff was probably the highlight because I was traveling. I traveled to London, got to go overseas and kind of help launch that. And that was exciting because it was something really different. And then I'd say the other stuff that's been kind of exciting is really, the Kevin stuff's been exciting, and then we won the GLAAD Award, so that was exciting too. Because that's also I'm also out of my element there because here I am at this big Hollywood event, and we're getting an award for that. So that was kind of out there too.
Yeah, and we just got the news, I guess a couple days ago now, that Kevin's going to be part of Spirit Day as well.
Right, yeah, he's going to be part of GLAAD Spirit Day, which is October 17th. And, he's going to be like an ambassador for GLAAD, and he's the first cartoon character to be given that honor. Normally it goes to regular, celebrities.
Human beings, if you will.
Human beings, yes.
Well, so you've had... you went overseas for MAC Cosmetics, your drawing books, your writing books, you're putting a huge output. How many conventions have you done this year on top of all of that?
Well, on top of that, I've done about 15 or 16 conventions, at least. So yeah, that's been really busy. This month has been the busiest I've ever been because I've done 4 in a row and I've never done that before. So every weekend in September I had a show. So I was testing my limits, let's say.
So we'll see you next at New York Comic Con?
New York in 2 weeks. So I have a break in between. And now it'll start to wind down a little bit. So I won't be at a show every week now, once a month, and then it'll kind of peter out over the winter.
Yeah, so you'll have a weekend to go home and draw all those comic books.
That I need to catch up on, exactly. Yeah.
So let's look ahead a little bit. We've got the Archie World Tour coming up. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, that's a fun story because we're just kind of involving anything that had to do with Archie and music. So we've got Archie, the Archies, Josie and the Pussycats, the Madhouse Glads, and the Bingos. And we follow them on a world tour. We also bring in a couple other new characters, a new love interest for Archie, Amisha, who's an Indian girl. And then we also take a little visit from Bridget, who is also a musical star at Archie for a while. And she kind of hasn't been around that much, but she's going to make a guest appearance.
Oh, that's awesome.
And then we also have Sabrina and Josie in the story. And, of course, the Valerie Archie romance is also going on. So there's a lot going on. And then we traveled to 4 different places. So we go to India, and then we go to China, and then we go to Australia, and then we end up in Canada. So.
Cool. Yeah, I know that you're a longtime Archie fan. Did you have a lot of history with these characters? I always loved, when Fernando did the Night at the Comic Shop storyline, and we had a lot of those classic MLJ characters come back. Were you a fan of these characters and wanted to bring them into a story? How did this story come about?
Yeah, I was a huge fan of them. So I grew up on Archie comics since I was 5 years old, so I was a big fan of that Wilkin boy. My first Archie comic, I believe, was a Josie from 1969. I was 5 years old, and I forgot the number, but it was one of the adventure-ish Josie titles. So yeah, I was a fan of all those characters. The major characters and the minor ones. So it's fun to bring as many of them back as we can.
Yeah, I love seeing them. I'm pushing personally for a Pat the Brat.
Pat the Brat, I love Pat the Brat too. Yeah.
So what are we expecting from Kevin? You're continuing to work, write and draw the Kevin book for the foreseeable future? I'm
writing and drawing Kevin, and then in issue number 14, we've got a big new storyline starting, which we're going to announce at New York Comic Con. So I can't quite announce it yet, but it'll be a nice new twist for Kevin.
Awesome. We'll look forward to that. I'm sure we'll be talking about that as it happens. So, wrapping up a huge year, another big one coming. Anything else you can tease for the coming future, Archie, what you're working on?
Let's see. We got Kevin. Betty and Veronica, a big new storyline coming up. I'm going to be drawing that. it's going to be a story that Michael Uslan is going to be writing it, and it's a like a part of a Betty and Veronica storyline that we had started a couple years ago, and we didn't get a chance to finish it up, but we'll be talking more about that in the future too. But that's going to be coming up too.
Awesome. Yeah, I know with a lot of the other books being canceled, Archie and Friends, Jughead, Betty, that stuff. I know we were worried about the Betty and Veronica book personally on the fan side of things. So it's exciting to hear that there's new stuff coming out from that.
Yeah, there's new stuff coming out with that, and then of course, Archie's still going strong with all their special books, like trade paperback books, their coffee table books. There's that Best of the Covers book coming out, which looks really great. I've seen that. And then there's, of course, Ever After Life with Archie. Everybody's going crazy about that. It looks phenomenal. And then so there's I think 2014 is going to be a really good year. I think even after the Archie World Tour, we were up in the office talking about another storyline that we'll be working on after that. So it will be very busy.
Cool. Well, thanks for all the work you've been doing. It's always exciting to see your stuff coming out. And you're obviously one of the people in the forefront of Archie, and have been for the last few years. For the last 20 years, 25 years at this point.
I've been there 26 years now. But yeah, the last few years have been really good. They've been really letting me do a lot of stuff, and I've been happy to do it.
And we're happy to see it done. So, Dan Parent, thanks so much for taking some time to talk to us today.
Thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
How cool is that? Dan Parent on the Riverdale podcast. I think we're going to try to get talk to Dan about coming back maybe in November when the first of the World Tour issues has come out. So I think we'll definitely be hearing more from him coming down the road. And we'll be on the lookout for that announcement about the upcoming Kevin Keller storyline that he mentioned from New York Comic Con. Hopefully we'll have that information for next week's show. I guess we'll wait and see. Also of note, the story that he mentioned for the upcoming Betty and Veronica books, written by Michael Uslan, I believe, I didn't confirm this with him, but it sounds like that is the storyline that they had planned for the Veronica and Betty magazine. After the success of Life with Archie, the magazine, a few years back, they announced another magazine which is going to be called Veronica and Betty, which was to be written by Michael Uslan and drawn by Dan Parent. And I believe the premise was for them to be jet-setting and going around the world and meeting boys and having adventures and stuff, which sounded terrific. And we didn't see that. It got canceled for whatever reason. So hopefully that story he mentioned that's coming up in the Betty and Veronica books is that story, because I would love, love, love to read it. But we are running long. Thanks for hanging with us. Let's wrap up the show. There's a great way to help out the show, benefit the show, and get yourself something for free. Absolutely free. In return, head over to audibletrial.com/Riverdale. There's a link on the website for that as well. Audible.com is the place to go for audiobooks, for old-time radio, any audio information, the New York Times, anything you want to hear instead of read, you can get at audible.com. Pretty much any genre, anything you're looking for, hundreds of thousands of titles. So head over to audibletrial.com/Riverdale, sign up, get a free book. It benefits the show immensely, and you get something for free. Everybody wins. So head over to audibletrial.com/Riverdale. Get yourself a free book. Help out the show. Everybody wins. Thanks for considering that. On the way out today, I want to remind everyone to head over to RiverdalePodcast.com. There you're going to see the terrific cover, the Fernando Ruiz cover for Archie number 648, our book of the week. You'll also find links to all of the news stories, that we discussed in the show this week. You'll find links there to like the show on Facebook, follow the show on Twitter, send us an email with any of your questions or comments to riverdalePodcast@yahoo.com. You'll find a link there to subscribe on iTunes, get new episodes delivered every Saturday morning straight to you. And if you're listening through iTunes, leave an iTunes review. It's a great way to help out the show. Just a couple seconds out of your day, and a huge benefit to the show. I think that's going to do it for this week. I think that's everything. Long show, longest show ever, maybe? Question mark. Thanks for hanging with us till the end and listening to me go on and on. Really appreciate it. So thanks so much for listening. Again, my name is Jonathan, and I'll see you again next week here in lovely Riverdale, USA.